Hello, this is Emily with Natural Health for Life, and today we'll be discussing EMF and autism. EMF stands for electromagnetic frequency, also known as electromagnetic radiation. And this is a type of energy that's all around us. It comes from cell phones, wireless phones, Wi-Fi routers. It's in our homes, offices, and even our... And so I was really thrilled. And at first, I almost couldn't believe what I was reading when I first came across a website talking about the Bioelectric Shield. Essentially what it is a personal protection device that you can keep with you, and it helps protect the body from EMF. I've got in contact with Virginia Brown, who developed the Bioelectric Shield along with her husband, and now runs a company that helps distribute these to people who would like to limit and reduce their EMF exposure. So I was very fortunate that she decided to join us today, and I'd like to go ahead and introduce Virginia.
I'm here. Hi.
Hi, welcome. I was hoping that you could share a little bit of your story with the audience as far as how you and your husband first realized that EMFs were actually a health concern.
Well, it definitely happened as a bit of a surprise. I had spent 16 years working in the schools, certified in sensory integration, and with a specialty at working with children with sensory processing problems, and then worked with my husband both with adults and children that parents would bring to me, cranial work and that sort of thing. And all those techniques worked and helped those children to function better. But what became incredibly interesting to us was when we had a group of patients that were programmers. I mean, they didn't come as a group, but one at a time, these programmers would show up to our clinic, which was in the Boston area. And so you had, digital company, Lotus, and programmers who were working on their computers 7 days a week, well, maybe 6 days a week, but for 8 or 10 hours at a time. And we would treat them. They would come in with symptoms of fatigue, headaches, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. We would treat them. They'd walk out of the office looking great. They'd come back 2 weeks later as if we had never seen them at all. And this was fortunately not a typical scenario in our office. Usually we had a pretty high success rate with people. So we said, okay, what's the common factor here that's different from all the other patients? And it was their exposure to electromagnetic radiation, which was coming from their monitors. So at the time, we had to go to the Harvard Medical School library and actually join the library so that we could read the research that was coming out of countries, particularly Sweden, because you couldn't get on the internet and just, do MedPub or anything like that. It just didn't exist as a possibility. So what we found was that any occupation that included exposure to electromagnetic radiation was producing the very same symptoms. Computers, anything that was putting out an electromagnetic field was producing these symptoms, and to the extreme, these symptoms that are now associated with electromagnetic sensitivity, but also associated with some of the sensory processing issues with autism. So we decided that we should probably keep researching, but Dr. Brown at the time had become a chiropractic neurologist. He was very concerned with the brain and what different frequencies could be doing to the brain. And so the long and short of it was that he set the intention to come up with something that was all natural, and that was something that could address the frequency issues that went along with electromagnetic radiation. So he had a series of waking dreams and was shown patterns of quartz and other crystals as a frequency that could be very protective for someone wearing it. And we didn't really take this for granted. We went and showed the pattern of crystals to a consultant that we had been working with for, at that time, at least 20 years. And because that family has the ability to see energy because of the lens structure of their eyes. They can see energy all around the body, all around any living thing. And so that consultant said, you know, you're on the right track after dream 1. And by dream 3, she said, you know, this pattern is producing a very balanced energy field that could be very protective to the body. Again, being from a somewhat skeptical nature, I have a brother who's a medical doctor. My other brother is an engineer. And so we are very big on facts. And so we called up a tenured physics professor that we knew at the time and said, is there really any basis for using quartz to refract radiation? And he didn't even take a breath and said, absolutely. They won 3 Nobel Prizes figuring out the correct spacing of the quartz. And in fact, those Nobel Prizes, we list them on our website, 1915 and 1920. And those were Nobel Prizes in physics based on the spacing and the angle, in other words, the face of the crystal, to have a mirroring effect on X-rays. And in the case of the shield, it is simply using that same technology to refract any forms of electromagnetic radiation, or for that matter, energy that is not compatible with you specifically.
So inside of this is where the quartz crystals and things in a special arrangement that's able to kind of repel or not allow the person to absorb the EMF.
Dr. Klinghardt out of Seattle.
He has some great YouTube videos.
Absolutely, and one of my all-time favorites is called Smart Meters and EMR, the crisis of our time, and we will have that link on our on the website for you and in the notations for the video. I totally recommend watching it because it's not just about smart meters. It actually includes the effect that radiation can have on all biological organisms, and that includes children with autism. So it's kind of in a must-watch category if you do have either a smart meter, a child with that issue, or you just want to be much more educated in a very grounded way. He's got his facts straight, and there are a lot of graphs and very useful information on that. So I'm a very big fan of his, and as he has a lot of very excellent strategies for how to protect yourself. And that's really what our company is all about, is how to protect you and your family from the downside of those wonderful electronics that we all wouldn't want to give up at all. We really enjoy them, but the effects on our biology are significant, and they are more significant for some people than others. And so given that, it's understandable that some people go, well, I don't really have an issue with that at all. It's, my kids are fine. And yet in other families, maybe you could talk a little bit about what happened with your family and what you noticed with your kids.
Yeah, I'd love to. And I mean, it's really a little heartbreaking looking back on it now. I wish I had known, but I remember when I was pregnant with my son, I used to put my cell phone in my pocket, and it was right next to my big pregnant belly. And, it was probably like sending EMF waves into his head or something. And my husband had put, he's into technology. We have Wi-Fi in our house. So he had put the Wi-Fi router right in our bedroom. So it was, nice and close to our bed where we sleep all night. And, it's my understanding that when you sleep, your body kind of enters this growth and repair mode, and you don't have as many outside defenses. You're kind of more vulnerable at that point to EMF. So if you are looking at EMF shielding or reducing your EMF exposure, the nighttime and the bedroom environment is a really good place to start. So what we've actually done now is I put the Wi-Fi on a router, or I put it on a timer. And so when we go to bed, it turns off, and then when my husband wakes up, then it turns on. And so it's off for that 7 or 8 hours at night that we're sleeping, and he doesn't need to be on his phone or his computer for work or anything like that. So that's a step that we've taken. I remember making sure that there was no baby monitors or any of that EMF stuff in my son's room as well. So once I did learn about this, I tried to make sure that that was all out of his space. But I did notice that across the street, we live in kind of a busy area or a busy street nearby. And from my house, when I stand in my driveway, I can actually see 3 cell phone towers just looking out of my driveway. So that was when I kind of freaked out, and I think I called you. I showed you these pictures. I was like, this is how close they are to us. What can I do?
Emily, this is not good news, Emily. This is definitely not good news. Let's do something about that. And maybe this would be a good time for me just to read just a little bit of a list here. I'm going to be kind of looking off to the side, but a list of the kind of electronics that you want to keep out of your bedroom and that you want to keep off at night. So you have the cordless phones, a huge source of electromagnetic radiation. Most people don't think, they think, well, my cell phone, okay, I'll have that off. Please don't use your cell phone as your alarm clock, or let your children use they don't need to be doing anything but other than sleeping and letting their brain and body develop at night, and without the help of any electronics. That's something they can do all by themselves. And so those devices should all be out of the bedroom. And so you've got the cordless phones, you've got Wi-Fi routers and equipment, which you mentioned, TV, video games, Xbox, Bluetooth equipment, of course, the baby monitors. I'm not quite sure. Maybe you can address that later. I know it's important for a parent to make sure that, that somehow that they can hear their baby. Maybe that means, like in the old days, the doors were all open, or maybe the baby's in the room. That's co-sleepers, things like that. Great idea. You don't need a baby monitor if your baby is right there in the room, or if they're actually just right next door. So those are all the things in the house and the bedroom. And then, well, not all of them. There's electric clocks. There's compact fluorescent light bulbs give out quite a bit of radiation. I would love it if we could just go back to the old light bulbs that are not quite perhaps as energy efficient, but on the other hand, they are not radiating us. Printers, battery backups, laptops, PCs, electronic equipment, hybrid cars. I hope I don't offend anyone, but a hybrid car is just an electromagnetic box. And if you do have a hybrid car, then we do have a real nice suggestion for that, because we do have auto shields that go in the room and shields that go in the cars. So maybe, Emily, you can talk about how you use the room shield.
Absolutely. So the room shields look a lot like my pendant. They're brass. They're small, maybe the size of a quarter, and they can be hung from anything. So we did a room shield. We have a great room, open floor plan. So we just needed one in our primary living space, and I was able to hang that on one of my potted plants. It kind of looks like a Christmas ornament, and it's toward the back, not very visible. I don't think anyone has ever noticed it yet. I also have them in my kids' room, kind of just hanging from the bulletin board that's covered with other stuff. And then I have one in my bedroom that's hanging from my, I have like a jewelry necklace stand that's about this tall. It has like necklaces and earrings and things, and I just put my room shield on there. So we're pretty well fully protected with the room shields in the bedrooms where we spend our nights when we're sleeping and vulnerable, and then our living room, great room area, which is where we spend most of the time when we're awake. So that was a good way that we handled it and kind of addressed that situation with living across the street from cell phone towers.
So I actually brought in a room shield so I could show you all.
Oh, nice.
And this is the stand that, thank you, courtesy of Michael's, but I think we bought 100 of them, maybe more. When you order a room shield, if you want to move it around, this is a great way to do it. Emily's technique of, hanging it from you can hang it from a ceiling fan or a center light. From a plant, but this is the other alternative. You could have it in the entertainment room.
That's lovely. It's like a work of art. It looks like an art piece.
Yeah, and I think it's $6. So it's
an affordable art piece.
Anyway, and this is the other side of it. But that same device can actually be hung from your mirror in your car, and
Great.
Particularly with the hybrid cars, I really, really recommend it because it's going to help clear the electromagnetic radiation all the time. All right, so to answer your question about the research, does the shield work? As we both have discussed, I wanted a lot of proof that the shield worked. And so in the very beginning year or two, actually probably the first 4 years that we've been in business since 1990. And at the time we were still both working in the Billings Pain and Allergy Clinic, and I had a full caseload, but that gave us an opportunity because we had very, cooperative patients to test out some of the, the efficacy of the shield. Was it a placebo effect and all that? And so there've really been a total of 12 different studies done, many of them done by other people, because we wanted independent verification. But we've done computerized acupuncture study, we've done electromyography, we've, heart rate variable, all kinds of studies are available under our research tab. And so I became convinced, particularly after seeing the computerized acupuncture, because we were testing 50 different acupuncture points prior to somebody wearing a shield. And then 3 or 4 weeks later, they would come back and those same points, those same 50 points were tested. And in Oriental medicine, that's the equivalent of having a physical because it covered your kidney, liver, gallbladder, immune system, and all those different things. And what I saw showed me that the body was just significantly more balanced energetically. And then we would get the anecdotal reports from people saying that they were better focused, they were calmer, they had more energy. Funny things like, gee, I was able to start a diet, I'm exercising again. These were not things that we were expecting. But if you really think about it, if somebody feels more balanced, then they can take on some things that they haven't been able to take on before because they have the energy to do it. And so our general really approach to electromagnetic protection is 3 layers. Number 1, protect your body first, if possible. And that's particularly true for individuals that are in, once children hit a school environment, particularly if there's Wi-Fi, I really do want to see them carrying or pinned to a pocket an electromagnetic device for protection, because it's going to help them focus better and help them just have a more balanced day. I think they're going to perform better in school. When I spoke with you first a number of years ago, I said, why don't you just start with some room shields? Because we do want children to build up a certain natural immunity, just like we want it to be loud when they're going to sleep so that they can sleep, in any environment. Right. We also want their body to be exposed to some electromagnetic radiation because this is the world that they're going to grow up in. So I don't really advocate putting somebody in a Faraday cage. It just doesn't make any sense to me. On the other hand, if you offer a significant level of protection, then especially at night when their bodies are developing, then you're allowing their brain and their body to do what it's supposed to be doing at night. And if they're not going to school yet, if they're young, you can just, have a room shield in the living room or not. You could just maybe leave it in the bedroom because that's the key time. So once people are at school, or if you're an adult, if you're working around computers, carrying a cell phone all day long, we actually have a chart on our website that was designed to help people really choose their own level of protection based on their level of exposure. So when you go to our site and it says read more on our homepage, go ahead and click on the read more, because it's going to take you to that chart that says, okay, so if this is what your life looks like, a level 1 shield, which is for your room, or your car, that's the all brass shield. Maybe that's fine. Maybe that's all you need if you're a young child or you're putting it in your car. The level 2 shields are for people that are, working. Maybe they're at home with children. They maybe are on a computer for maybe an hour a day. They have a cell phone with them. Those are the what we call level 2 shields. And the way we determine the metals is as follows. Inside every shield is a configuration of quartz and other crystals that produce this very, balanced human frequency, which is also the same as the earth frequency. It's essentially the Schumann resonance. Within 24 hours of you putting that on your body, that frequency really blends and goes into resonance with your body. It then knows what your exact frequency is, and everyone has a frequency as unique as a fingerprint, which is kind of neat. And so
yeah, that's cool.
the shield knows what that frequency is, and its job is to deflect frequencies that are not compatible with you. So not only does it work, of course, to deflect electromagnetic radiation, and that we know simply because it's following, the Nobel Prize winning physics principles. We know that it's doing that. But what we didn't know when we first came up with this was that it's also deflecting frequencies that are from other people or situations that are disruptive to you. And it actually made treating patients far easier for me. And secondarily, I found that at the end of the day, I wasn't nearly as tired as I had been before I wore a shield. And that's been confirmed to me by several therapists that, said, hey, is it, my imagination, or I'm just not as tired when I, have my shield on. And then there's the ones that say, well, I didn't really think the shield was doing anything for me. And, but I figured I'd keep it because I had it. But then I forgot to bring it to work. And I had the most exhausting day in months. And they said, now I realize that even though I wasn't feeling it, it is actually doing all that stuff that you say that it does. It is actually filtering out energies that are just not useful for me. So,
well, yeah, I mean, that's really interesting, bringing it back to autism too. I mean, I've noticed, and I've heard other parents' stories where after a day of being at school with all the, the sensory stimulus, the social stimulus, these kids are kind of, on trying to perform and do their best in this very noisy environment. And oftentimes when they come home, it's kind of their release. They just need to go kind of do their whatever it is, pacing, talking to themselves, spending time with their pets, but they need a break. They need to cut it off. And I feel like the two of those things you mentioned, the ability to focus while they're at school and their ability to kind of mute out the outside noise and not be so exhausted at the end of their day would both be helpful. Now, I know you were describing the shields, and I believe you have developed some specific shields for autism and ADHD and that type of a thing. Before you go on to all of the other ones, would you mind maybe narrowing in and telling us how those are specifically designed to help our kids?
Love to. Well, so in my work with, these kids with the sensory processing issues for essentially, when you add it up, about 25 years, I finally said to my consultant, I said, you see children like this in your practice as well. Would you be able to add to the basic matrix that, Dr. Brown dreamt about, the basic matrix, and could you add something that would help either the lower or the higher functioning children on the autism spectrum? Would, adding certain other gems help them think more clearly or make more connections? And so she said, well, let me work with it. And so it took some months, and she finished the designs last spring, and we now have them available in both the silver or the silver with gold levels. And she has said that they should, help with focusing, with clarity of thought, and with making connections, and including making some emotional connections too. And, it's going to be different with everyone. So we're not silly enough to, make promises or predictors about how it's specifically going to show up for each child. But what I would recommend actually is we do have something that you participated in called a photo analysis. And that's free, because I think as an OT, I just felt like, if you really want to make a specific recommendation, you need to learn about the person that you're making that recommendation for, if possible. So
yeah, I'd love to share our experience with that. So after we got the room shields and everything, I wanted I wanted more. I wanted the whole package because my belief is that when you're healing autism, you need to do the full court press. So actually what we did was we took pictures of my family wearing white clothes in front of a white background. And that's so we could send it in to your consultant who is able to see the energy fields. And I've looked at a few Carillion photography pictures. I think you actually have them up on your website, but that was helpful for me to kind of visualize. These are like, you know, how much energy is around different parts of your body, kind of like a heat map, but with your bodily energy. So I was able to take these pictures of my 2 kids and myself in front of our garage door, which is white, our white clothes, and I sent them into you. And then you had your expert look at them, and I was really impressed and I felt gratified. I actually sent a picture in from my husband as well. And you told me that essentially he was one of those people that was fairly tough and resilient and didn't absorb a lot of energy. So that was, I felt like you weren't just trying to sell me the highest price thing or just, you know, oh, of course you need the maximum protection or anything. I felt like it was very realistic. And also because my kids were young at that time, preschool age. And you said, just like you mentioned today, you know, at that age, they need to go out and experience the world. So they do not need a personal protection shield until they get to school where there's Wi-Fi and that type of a thing. So at that point, I just got the room shields for them, and I got my personal protection shield, which is the level 2. And I think I interrupted you. I was excited about something you were saying, but you were describing the different levels of protection, and essentially it's a similar matrix inside of the shield, but you have different metals on the outside.
Yeah,
I kind of think of it as the skin of a drum, like resonating out the energy from the crystal. So the bronze was the one that you showed us.
Yeah.
The silver that I have is the level 2, and then you have gold ones as well, and kind of a mix within that. Is the gold the strongest level then?
Yeah, so here's a real easy way to say it. It's like you've got the crystal matrix. It's creating this wonderful energy, you know, service for you.
Okay.
And strengthening and protective. And then whatever metal that surrounds that matrix amplifies that effect. So the brass is a good amplifier, so it's great for a room or a car. The silver is a better amplifier, so it's good for, we recommended it for you because you weren't sitting in front of a computer and working more than 6 hours a day.
Right.
You were at home, and so the level 2 was perfect for that. The level 3 it's silver, but it has the gold tabs around it. And when people go to the site and they see, well, in fact, you can see these are the tabs right here. This happens to be a gold shield, but
okay,
are the tabs. And so gold is the best amplifier of all. So on our level 3 shields, it really ups the protection because gold is such a good amplifier. And then by the time you get to the level 4, which, you know, really only a small percentage of people actually need the level 4. If you live in the heart of a huge metropolitan area, downtown, yes, we're definitely going to recommend, because you're essentially living in a Wi-Fi hotspot.
Okay.
Or if you electromagnetically sensitive, that might be something that you really would benefit from. And so those are the 4 levels. And when you go to the website, when you click that read more, it'll take you to those charts and describes very briefly your lifestyle. The photo analysis is really great, particularly if you have a child with an issue or you have a health issue, because our consultant will look at your photo, which will show your sensitivity levels, your energy field, which is why we knew your husband was, you know, he was doing all right really without, some people just have natural protection or they're just not that sensitive to this, which is awesome. But then there's the rest of us that, you know, where it really can make a very positive effect. So the photo analysis also includes you answering questions, because our consultant needs to know what exactly are you being exposed to. You know, has your child started going to a school where they hand him an iPad when he walks in, you know, and there's Wi-Fi? Well, okay, a personal shield is in order then, you know, even if he's 6. Because
yeah, I mean, I've seen at speech therapy, some of these kids with autism who are pre-verbal using an iPad in order to communicate. They click on a picture and then the iPad says the word that they're intending. And so I've seen this 2-year-old walking around with an iPad strapped around his neck, you know, hanging against his abdomen all day. And I'm like, it needs some protection.
Yeah, when you told me that, quite frankly, I was like, I know you're not kidding, and I'm really not happy for it. You know, how many people can we get to just, how many parents can we get to say, please put some personal protection on your child?
Right. So that's your step one, is personal protection, having a shield that's right for you, right?
So, right, I don't want to talk forever here, but, you know, step 2 is basically, or layer 2, you know, after layer 1, protect your body. Layer 2 is, you know, put some stuff on your electronics. And we have a whole section on our website where you can actually spray the iPad with a, you know, something that leaves a nanoparticle radiation deflection on that. And there's just a whole section of things for that. And then we also have section 3, which is your home or your car. And we have, you know, actually a fabric rinse that you can use. You know, some parents have really very sensitive children. We mainly recommend those fabrics for when people are traveling internationally. So there's an application for all of it. There is something that might be really useful to have, which is we have this little EMF Protection Blanket, which was actually originally designed by a group of women, for women to put over their bellies if they have to sit in front of a computer all day long. And but the versatility of this, you know, I suppose it's that occupational therapist in me that's like, well, how else can we use this blanket? And how I've used it is I'll put it on my own lap if I have my notebook on, you know, my iPad or whatever it is on my lap. I've actually draped it over my dog, who was sitting at the end of the recliner, and I had my, you know, notebook there, and so I didn't want my dog to be radiated from my electronics.
Oh, that's a good point. Pets.
For cats and dogs, you know, you use the little, you know, this room shield thing, and you can, wherever they typically sit, like our dog sits on our upstairs couch right by the windowsill. So we have this hanging right next to where he sits, because he's small. He's like a Bichon, 12 pounds. And so he doesn't really wear a collar, but because he spends so much time next to this, he gets, you know, a lot of protection all day long. So, and we have a shield hanging in our bedroom at night. So these are just, you know, different layers of protection that you can add as it is financially, you know, possible for you, but they don't wear out. And that's just really the last thing I want to say about the Bioelectric Shield. It's so really great. It's because it is all natural with the quartz and the other crystals. The way that you keep it at full strength is so easy. You either hang it in a window, or if you can, hang it outside, either loop it through a lawn chair, or, you know, attach it to something so it's dangling. And if it's cloudy, you leave it out there for 6 hours, 1 day a month. If it's sunny, it's only 3 hours. You use that same criteria if you have it inside a window. You just add 2 hours because the glass is in the way. But I have noticed with sadness, actually, that there are many other devices out there that will last for a year or two, and they just stop working. You know, frequency generators and that kind of thing. So because the quartz, the way they do their work, they're vibrating, and so that vibration it's a physical energy that's being used, and so the energy from the sun is literally conducted through the metal when you're hanging it out, and it recharges the crystals. So you could wear this shield for 100 years and then put it in your will and leave it to, you know, to whatever loved one of your choice. They would hang it out for 6 days to clear it of their energy, you know, and you can, you know, give it to them. Or if you upgrade from a level 2, say, to a level 3, you can clear your level 2 shield by keeping it during the day outside. And then a week later, you can actually gift that to, say, you know, your other child.
Okay, so if you want to take it from your frequency and then give it to somebody else, hang it in the sun for a week. I didn't know that. We've talked about the dangers of EMF and how they're all around us in the environment, and they're basically inescapable at this point, despite the research that shows that they're not good for us. We've talked about how they're specifically dangerous for people who have autism, who have chronic disease, and who are pregnant. And we've talked about how the Bioelectric Shield is proven to work based on Nobel Prize winning physics. And you said you cited 12 different research studies on your website that proved, even though we can't measure it in the air around us, we can measure it within our bodies. The effect that we have when it's on is enhancing our health. So I thought that was really interesting, and you did a great job, Virginia, of explaining some of the next steps with the products that you have available on your website. I want to encourage everyone, if you have a child with autism, I think your next step should be to take the picture and have the photo analysis done. At the very least, I think your first step is to get a room shield. And then if, like Virginia said, they're over school age, the photo analysis will help you select the right shield for him. And I'm saying him because 4 times more boys are affected by autism than girls. If you do have a girl, she can wear it as a necklace. If your child is not comfortable wearing it as a necklace, you could also wear the shield like with a safety pin, pinned somewhere on your child's person that they're not going to fidget with it. So it could be inside of the pants pocket, on the back of their shirt, or inside of their underwear, something like that. And I believe she's also developing a watch band that you could strap it to their wrist, just like a wristwatch.
Yeah.
Is that right?
We're in the final stages of finishing up a bracelet shield that's going to include a very cool strap, which is what we were figuring out on Friday of how to attach it. And the conclusion that we came to is, you know, when you put a collar around a pet and it sort of snaps shut,
yes,
it's almost impossible to get that thing open unless you squeeze 2 sides of the, plastic clip. And we thought that would be just perfect for kids that want to play around with bracelets, but there's no way they're going to be able to get it off. So we've ordered the parts, and those should be available, in the next few weeks.
Excellent.
So that's coming to our site very soon.
Excellent. A new release.
Yes.
So again, just to wrap up, I think we've had a really informative discussion here. We will be putting a lot of the references that we mentioned in the show notes, and as well as a link to Virginia's site, which is Bioelectric Shield. And Virginia was kind enough to offer a little thank you to me for putting this on, and to you for looking at her products. If you enter the coupon code Natural Health, and I'll put that in the notes, then you will get a 10% discount, and I will get a small affiliate fee, which is one of the ways that we pay to keep the website up and keep the videos coming, to help inform you about alternatives, kind of things that you wouldn't have thought about or been told by your doctor that can actually help with your child's autism recovery. So that, again, the coupon is Natural Health, and if you decide to buy a shield, you can use that coupon. Just tell Virginia. What I would recommend is taking a look at some of those room shields, and also sending in a photo if your child is school age or older for the photo analysis. And of course, like she said, you can do it for other family members and as pets, kind of as budget allows and as your sort of EMF rich environment suggests. So I want to kind of bring it to an end. Virginia, I'll pass it back to you for a moment if there are any final thoughts, but I think that this has been a really interesting and valuable discussion about the dangers of EMF for autism patients specifically.
Thank you so much. We're decided we were going to have so much fun that we're going to continue to do these broadcasts. So for this particular one, if you have any questions about your child or yourself in terms of protection, I'm going to give you the company number, because I'm certainly happy to speak with you. It's 201, it's 541-201-8878. So let me do that again. 541-201-8878. And if you do the photo analysis, I will be the person that's speaking with you on your behalf with the consultant, and then I'll be calling you back. So my greatest joy is helping others just have a great life. And there are just a lot of great things that we can do. And hopefully you could take advantage of the Bioelectric Shield. So take care, and till the next time.
Thank you so much, Virginia. It's been a pleasure. And thank you to our audience for joining us. We'll see you on the next video.